Meh, 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 meh.
You ain't so tough with that bad boy talk. I'ma get it how I'm living, I'ma walk the walk. Outline my lines, I rap through thought.
Hey friends, what's happening? How are you? Good? Huh? Welcome back to Football Therapy with me, your host, Jan. Yes, and to Chelsea news. Double daily briefings here on the channel at the moment, mate. Talking about big old Chelsea, what's going on in the SW6. A lot, always, apparently. Big Fabrizio Romano dropping the knowledge that Carney has a release clause in his contract, which is hella interesting, of a significant fee. We'll talk about that a little bit. Definitely a shout out to the Chelsea women who have got their own sponsor, and Lucy Bronze coming, that's pretty huge. As well as other things like Ben Chilwell and Calafiori, and Chelsea wanting to get him off Bologna and maybe offering a player, and obviously he wants to go to Juve. Juve want him, but they'd rather sell abroad. Arsenal are also interested. There's so much. So, thanks for joining me. Strap yourselves in. Thank you, as always, for continuing to support the content here on Football Therapy. You can do that simply by, dropping a like, subscribing, hitting the bell if you choose to subscribe. I'm just checking live now while I'm talking to you. Yeah, I've still not 185,000, so we can do it together. Come on, you and I. You and I, baby. Together. Forever. Alright, mate, let's get into it. Let's start off with, you know what, let's shout out the Chelsea women's team. They've got their own sponsor. Free, of course, were our sponsor throughout winning the Champions League. A little bit after, they did drop us when we had the sanctions, and Trivago didn't. Shout out Trivago, the training sponsor. 3 dropped us, but clearly the relationship has been maintained. They've today become Chelsea's the Chelsea women's first only principal partner. I believe this is the first time in women's football history where, they get their own sponsor. Chelsea leading the way, trailblazing. Probably some sort of money-making exercise as per the norm, but this is excellent for women's football. It shows that they're no longer just having to piggyback off the structure of the men's kits. They can have, eventually they might have their own kits, which would be really interesting. But I think there's value of having one universal kit for men and women. And, but different sponsors, cool, man. I honestly, I've got a good feeling about it. I think the optics are good. I think it's cool how it's just different and it's differentiating between the two different teams. So, yeah, more money for the women's team. Hopefully they can expand and get better, and we can keep being a good football team beyond the Emma Hayes, tenure. So that's huge news. Also, we're signing Lucy Bronze from Barcelona. Free transfer. Contract is expired, but that's still like a massive high-profile signing. Massive player, Lucy Bronze, and she's a fullback, but she plays very effectively going forwards. Huge signing, huge news for the Chelsea women's team. So shout out. Alright, so there's lots to get into back on the men's team with transfers. I want to reference a few things I've seen on the social medias. X, formerly known as Twitter. First of all, should we start off with this story of Carney, of course, the young attacking midfielder, that Chelsea signed only so recently from Aston Villa. He looked really, really good playing in that number 10 spot behind the striker for Pochettino. He got injured, out of the team for a while. And of course, there was lots of stories suggesting that he could be sold. He could be one of these players going out to accommodate new players coming in, like Dewsbury Hall. That's not so much the case. And Fabrizio Romano confirmed yesterday that there's a release clause in his contract for 40 million quid sterling. So that's double the amount that we bought him for. And he has, I imagine. It's really interesting, I find, that we put for, because, that's significant cash. I was joking yesterday, someone comes along and waves for, I can't remember if I said 40 or 50, that amount of money under Chelsea's nose. Would they just be like, yep, you can have him, sort of thing, despite how good he is, and I do rate him incredibly highly. So Carney hasn't done much at Chelsea. He's had these moments where he's looked really good and he's been injured and he's not had a run in the team. So it's not like he's come in and done like Cole Palmer. Do you know what I mean? But he does look good. And I wonder if this player, had he played more for Chelsea, right? and played well, that someone would be like, yeah, here's you, trigger the release clause, absolute bargain, in the same way that, maybe he plays to the level that we thought we were getting when we bought Cole Palmer for 40 million. But, I'm not saying he's going to be as good as Cole Palmer now, because Cole Palmer's probably worth 100 million. But very, very interesting to hear that there is a release clause amidst all this talk about him maybe being sold. Obviously, someone will have to trigger the release clause. And there are multiple things being said here. So Carney Chukwuemeka does not want to leave Chelsea and isn't planning to do so. This is also confirmed by Fabrizio Romano. Chelsea want to continue with Carney Chukwuemeka. The only way he leaves the club is if a big money offer or they trigger the 40 million clause. And of course, he has to agree to go somewhere. Even if a club comes along and triggers the 40 million pound release clause, Carney has to say, yeah, right, I'll go. There is, of course, the concern that Chelsea signing Dewsbury Hall, Chelsea having other attacking midfielders, that maybe he'll think, yeah, let's go and take this opportunity. But, maybe he does like an Amari Hutchinson and thinks like, it wasn't a mistake coming to Chelsea. It's despite Chelsea being an absolute circus at the moment, there's still an element of, if you've gone to Chelsea lately, then you're a good player. Do you know what I mean? Like, whether it's like Santos or Cassidy or Amari Hutchinson, barely played for Chelsea, but he's gone for £22.5 million. It's almost like, well, if Chelsea buy him, we'll give him lots of money for him because he's good, which is kind of impressive, especially considering we are a bit of a, it's not like we're winning Champions Leagues over here, but maybe there is a respect for the infrastructure, finding and identifying talent, and if Chelsea have bought them, they're good and worth buying. I don't know. But yes, good that Carney Chukwuemeka wants to stay at Chelsea. Very interesting to hear that there is a £40 million release clause. I wonder if Chelsea will regret that release clause if they do play him and he looks really good. I suppose if that is the case, if that does happen, Chelsea would be interested in, I suppose, renegotiating his contract, I guess, as quickly as possible to not have a £40 million pound release clause, because he'll be worth more than that, I guess, to Chelsea. Right, I'm going to sip my coffee and we're going to move on. Coffee. Right, we're going to end on Ben Chilwell being for sale, which breaks my little heart. And we'll talk. Well, not necessarily for sale. We'll get into this in just a moment. But we'll start off with Riccardo Calafiori, the Italian defender, left back, central defender, but can play left back. The left footer, the most salient point here, that would possibly play on the left side of a Levi Colwill, if we are to believe reports yesterday from Matt Law of The Telegraph, that Levi Colwill has a good chance of starting, good chance of playing as a left centre-back, not as one of these hybrid left-back players that Pochettino played him as. In fact, that could still happen, but it would be the likes of Riccardo Calafiori. Romano has said Chelsea and Arsenal are both still really interested in Calafiori. Chelsea could tempt Bologna by including a player. The salary won't be a problem, understandably and unsurprisingly. The race is open. Now, Riccardo Calafiori, of course, one of Italy's stars in the Euros. Italy underwhelmed, generally were eliminated. He did get a crucial winning assist, of course, late, and was generally looking very, very good in the Italian defence. Of course, played very well last season for Bologna, qualifying them, as well as Thiago Motta, the manager, for the Champions League. His manager and Motta has gone to Juventus, and I think there are reports are suggesting that ideally Calafiori would like to follow him there. But Bologna, who, by the way, probably fancy themselves a little bit in Serie A now, as, a top 4 team in Champions League, probably a bit more money to spend, they would prefer not to sell Riccardo Calafiori to Juventus, to a top 4 rival. And in fact would prefer to sell him to the Premier League, a Premier League club. And Chelsea and Arsenal might actually offer more money than Juventus at the moment. I feel like they might have more surplus funds, just being able to spend. So they'd prefer basically to sell them to Chelsea or Arsenal. I wonder, Chelsea is a well-trodden path for Italians. I wonder if we'll see that. Of course, we have an Italian manager. I wonder if that will give us the edge. Off the bat, Arsenal are a better team right now, so there's that allure that they are playing in this shit. You're leaving a Champions League team to go to a Conference League team in Chelsea? Obviously, his vision would have to be more long-term than that. He's a young player, of course. How old is he, 23? Riccardo Calafiori? He's very, very young. We have looked at his stats briefly. Not amazing on like the data sheet statistics. He's 22, so he's only just turned 22 as well, actually. So he's very, very young. Yeah, he's a good player. He's very much for me an eye test player rather than a stats player. But we can have another close look if he does sign for Chelsea and if the story develops. Yeah, Chelsea like him. Again, the mood test on him across social media is a very, very positive one. Chelsea fans dig it. They probably quite like him. He's high profile, isn't it? Amidst the times when we're signing 18-year-old Mark Hughes and South American teenagers, and if you can sign a guy who's just shone at European Championships for a big country like Italy, it sort of excites people a little bit more, doesn't it? But what does that mean for Chile B? Well, we're going to spend a couple of minutes speaking about this. Sam C Reports has said this on Twitter X. Now, this is a guy called Sam C. You might have seen him on social media. He works for the United Stand, of course, the Goldbridge channel, and that's football, the other Goldbridge channel. He's a news aggregator for football. Now, he says he was breaking information for a living. He does have links, this guy. Undeniably, this guy's got connections. He used to break lineups before they were published officially, and certain news and transfer stories. So there's a reputability there. He's, people believe him, essentially. I mean, I'm trying to think, do I believe him? Do I believe anyone? I only really believe David Ornstein, to be honest. Fully. But he's saying top clubs are interested in signing Ben Chilwell. Ben Chilwell. So, we know for a fact that the likes of Manchester City have asked about Ben Chilwell before. They have. Of course they had Mendy have that lawsuit and was out for ages. Of course I believe they're playing Gvardiol, isn't he? Walker right back, Gvardiol left back. They also wanted James as well. Pep Guardiola's wanted both Chelsea's Champions League winning wing backs in Reece James. I mean, who wouldn't want Reece James? And indeed Ben Chilwell as a dynamic up and down fullback. So Gvardiol's playing there. Look, he's a centre-back, Gvardiol, but to be fair, he looks like he's developing all the time. I mean, if you said to me at the moment, who would you rather on the pitch, Ben Chilwell or Joško Gvardiol, I'd probably say Gvardiol. But I'm a big Ben Chilwell fan. Huge Ben Chilwell fan. So it would be with a heavy heart that we sold him. And he's such a, top boy. He's such a good guy, Ben Chilwell. You just see him around Cobham, these photos with Dewsbury Hall welcoming. He was so good with Mudryk when he came in. I know he's vice captain, but I've really I'm not against Reece James being captain, but in terms of personality and communication, Reece James probably trumps it because he probably loves Chelsea more. He's been at Chelsea his whole life. But in terms of being a communicator and a figure, Ben Chilwell for me is more captain material than Reece James in that sense. So I do love him. He loves Chelsea. He calls it Chelsea. Despite being from Leicester, he wants to win more trophies. He was amazing in that Champions League final. I think actually gets too much disrespect. And forgive me for repeating myself on stuff that I've said on previous videos, but there'll be new viewers and you guys may have forgotten. I was desperate for us to sign Ben Chilwell, and I caught so much heat for it. Of course, we had Frank Lampard as a manager at the time. It's the summer he signed Thiago Silva and Ben Chilwell, and we all know how good Frank Lampard's talent ID is. He wanted Haaland before it was cool. He wanted Bellingham when he was 16. He wanted, and this has all been proven by scouts since. He wanted Declan Rice to return. Granted, that was a bit more Jody Morris early doors, but Frank got on board very quickly. His talent ID is very, very good. And he wanted Ben Chilwell, and I wanted Ben Chilwell. I thought he was the second best left back in the Premier League at the time, behind at the time Andy Robertson, who was very good, probably in his pomp in the Premier League. And I was like, everyone was saying, we want Alex Telles, we want Tagliafico, and it were those guys now, by the way. And I was like, no, I caught so much heat for wanting Ben Chilwell. Ben Chilwell comes in, he proves he can play left back under Lampard. He's an amazing left wing back under Thomas Tuchel, and scores, but has this really unique role where he inverts into the 18-yard box and scores like a striker, finishes like a striker. He can volley as well. He did a couple of volleys like Marcus Alonso, remember, with his left foot in. But he can defend well, and he's quick. He's not like Alonso who couldn't get back. He was dynamic and could get back. Chile, love him, right? Amazing player, amazing guy. But again, it's worth mentioning if we're going to be playing in a new way, where if the left back's inverting, like if you told me right now you're playing in such a way where the left back inverts, do you want Cucurella or do you want Ben Chilwell? I'm going to choose Cucurella. I'm not saying Cucurella is generally a better player. I think if you want a dynamic up and down left back, left wing back, you'll struggle to find many left-sided players on form and fitness than Ben Chilwell. Of course, many of you go, oh yeah, and Alphonso Davies, and picking your own players. But on form and when fit, Chile is insane. He's that good. He's still young. He's late 20s. How old is he? 27. How old is he? 27? Ben Chilwell. He is. Yeah, he's 27. So he doesn't even turn 28 until like late December. So he's one of the much needed senior players in this team. I don't know, man. He's on high wages as well. Chelsea trying to get the wage bill down. He won't be on an incentivized contract, and Chelsea will be looking, like I said yesterday, they'll be looking to do what they've done with Malo Gusto in the left back spot. Get a young player on low incentivized wage contract, you know what I mean, and find good value there, and maybe a bit young and good, injury record. And I can't be against that because that's sensible business, But if we can find a way to make Chilwell work, I would like that as well, because he's one of the few players that represent the Champions League win. The Chelsea sort of when we're kind of really, really good. Anyway, I know many hipsters prefer Cucurella, and it's fun and trendy to hate on Chilwell now again. Because he did play a bit and he played badly. Which happens, Cucurella can tell you about that as well. Trust me, he's played badly in spells. And it's now, in vogue to slag off Chilwell again. But I'm an England fan. We are gagging for Chilwell. Of course, we're playing a 35-year-old right back who's injured and gassed at left back for England in the Euros. And yes, of course, Chilwell played for England. He was poor and he was injured for Chelsea, and etc., etc. But he's a left back that's fit. We should have brought him to the Euros. Anyway, I'll be very, very sad if we sign Chilwell, but I kind of, at the same time, understand it. He's just one of my, players that I've really liked at Chelsea, So, that's my opinion. Why don't you leave yours down in the comments below, and let's start up a nice, friendly, and respectful footballing conversation. In the meantime, thanks for joining me. Thank you for liking and subscribing. Of course, I will be back very soon as some news drops, and as we know with Chelsea, news will drop very, very soon. All right, see you in a bit. Peace.